Am 22.09.2001 war es soweit. GSW German Stampede Wrestlings Night in Motion 1 aus der Schützenhalle in Schmallenberg, Berghausen. Jetzt haben wir 2021, wir sind im September, 20-jähriges Jubiläum der GSW, 20 Jahre German Stampede Wrestling. Und das feiern wir heute mit 20 Jahre GSW, der Talk. Und dazu habe ich natürlich nicht nur mich hier, das wäre ein bisschen blödsinnig, alles alleine zu erzählen. Nein, es gibt heute Abend jede Menge Gäste. Und natürlich gebührt die Ehre, hier der erste Gast zu sein, niemand Geringerem als dem Promoter der GSW schlechthin aus Sao Paulo, Brasilien. 20 Jahre im Wrestling-Geschäft, Ingo Schock Vollenberg. Und da ist er auch schon.
Vielen Dank, Tommy. Mit so einer tollen Ansprache hätte ich jetzt gar nicht gerechnet hier.
Als Ringsprecher muss man doch irgendwo seinen Job machen und den habe ich heute Abend auch gesagt. Außerdem habe ich es gerade schon gesagt, Ehre wem Ehre gebührt. Deswegen herzlich willkommen an den Chefpromoter, so möchte ich das mal sagen, der GSW. Ingo, schön dich zu sehen.
Vielen Dank, Tommy. Wir haben uns ewig nicht mehr gesehen und und mir fällt auf, du siehst noch genauso aus wie früher.
Das Kompliment kann ich nur zurückgeben. Man merkt, wenn man im Wrestling-Business aktiv ist, das hält jung. Und,
nicht jeden leider.
Ja, wir haben ja schon was im ersten Teil gesehen. Nicht jeden, okay.
Gut, das habe ich jetzt nicht gesagt. Naja. Ja. Gut, zweite Runde hier. Schön, dass du dabei bist, Tommy. Genau, deswegen muss ich ja jetzt dich vorstellen. Ne? Das hat ja noch niemand gemacht. Thomas Giesen, Ringsprecher von German Stampede Wrestling. Erste Veranstaltung, sein Debüt gegeben in Berghausen, 22. September. Schön, dass du da bist.
Danke, danke. Ja, ich freue mich, hier zu sein. Bin sehr gespannt, was wir heute Abend hier erleben werden, wen wir alles hier haben werden und worüber wir so reden werden.
Ja, hast du was, worüber du reden möchtest?
Naja, wenn ich dich schon mal hier habe und wir haben uns ja lange nicht gesehen, du warst ewig lange der Promoter der GSW. Du bist seit 20 Jahren insgesamt im Wrestling-Geschäft mittlerweile aktiv. Das wissen die meisten Fans ja schon von dir. Die meisten, die heute Abend zuschauen, werden dich daher kennen. Aber was kaum jemand weiß, ist eigentlich, wie geht es dir heute? Was machst du heute? Wo lebst du heute? Das sind doch, glaube ich, die Sachen, die wir alle von Ingo Vollenberg wissen.
Wir alle, das weiß ich nicht, aber mir geht es sehr gut. Danke der Nachfrage. Mir geht es im Moment eigentlich sehr gut. Bei mir ist es tatsächlich ein bisschen exotisch geworden. Ich bin von der Zeit nach Brasilien gegangen und habe sehr lange in Brasilien gelebt und arbeite auch an meinem Portugiesisch fleißig. Ich habe mich da ein bisschen auch beruflich weiterentwickelt. Ich glaube, auf meinen Beruf würde ich tatsächlich später auch nochmal eingehen, was ich mittlerweile so mache, weil ich glaube, es kommt ein Gast, mit dem ich das ein bisschen besprechen kann.
Okay.
Deswegen postponed. Genau, ich bin jetzt wieder in Deutschland aktuell und ich hätte natürlich gern, also wenn man so sieht, 20 Jahre stehen jetzt an, so ganz kurz habe ich überlegt, kann man denn nicht irgendwas machen, aber ich kriege so viel mit von anderen Veranstaltern, wie die gerade leiden durch die ganze Corona-Zeit. Deswegen spüre ich das Bedürfnis leider gar nicht.
Zurzeit schwere Zeiten, einige versuchen es und momentan, wir sind jetzt im September, klappt es wieder hier und da. Einige müssen absagen, andere können wieder veranstalten. Aber ich glaube, es war eine gute Entscheidung, dieses Format hier zu wählen und nicht noch übers Knie gebrochene Show aufzuziehen, die dann vielleicht doch hätte abgesagt werden müssen.
Ja, das Format ist Corona-safe. In Brasilien habe ich viele Videokonferenzen gemacht, deswegen kam das irgendwie nach einer Zeit so als Idee. Und also ich arbeite tatsächlich auch an einem Online-Talk-Format, einem Videotalk-Format, was ich mit 2 Personen mache, die man auch aus der GSW-Geschichte kennt, hat aber nicht so viel mit Wrestling zu tun, also was ganz anderes. Kommt ab nächsten Monat und seid mal gespannt. Also
du kannst noch nicht verraten, wer die beiden sind?
Ich gebe mal Tipps. Ein sehr guter Freund von mir, der vor allen Dingen am Mikro bekannt ist. Und das andere ist eine Dame, die schon sehr, sehr, sehr lange bei German Stampede Wrestling nicht mehr war. Das kennen wirklich nur die absoluten Kenner. Du kennst sie vielleicht noch, aber die meisten werden sie vielleicht gar nicht kennen. Aber genau, lasst euch mal überraschen.
Ich bin sehr, sehr gespannt. Du hast jetzt gesagt, Brasilien.
Mhm.
Da hast du irgendwie ja, mehr oder weniger deine zweite Heimat gefunden.
Mhm.
Ist das so? Ja. Und
Ja.
wir haben uns in der Zwischenzeit wirklich nur vor Jahren irgendwann mal Ringside gesehen oder so, kaum
Ja.
Zeit zum Sprechen, wie das so
Ja,
ist.
im Ruhrgebiet, glaube ich.
Ich
Mhm.
weiß aber von dir von Social Media zum Beispiel, dass du ja auf der ganzen Welt auch unterwegs warst. Also Reisen ist so dein Ding geworden.
Ja, auf jeden Fall. Also ich war in Südamerika unterwegs, war in Asien unterwegs. Ich liebe die Balkanländer, ich toure da sehr gerne. Aktuell habe ich wenig Zeit und Brasilien verschlingt natürlich da auch so ein bisschen vom Fokus. Das heißt, ja, auch durch Corona konnte man jetzt natürlich nicht so viel reisen, ne?
Ja.
Aber ein bisschen war ich da natürlich trotzdem unterwegs. Und ja, ansonsten war ich zum ersten Mal länger in Wien.
Mhm.
Vorletzten Monat war das, glaube
Mhm.
ich, und war da wieder Wrestling-technisch aktiv für Mark Landauer und für Rings of Europe als Ringsprecher. Das heißt, in Shades of Thomas Giesen durfte auch ich da ans Mikro.
In Österreich habe ich, glaube ich, noch nie im Ring gestanden. Weil
Echt
Österreich
nicht?
ist so ein großes und wichtiges Wrestlingland in Europa, viele Shows. Und ich glaube, wenn ich mich erinnere, habe ich da noch nicht im Ring gestanden. Du sagst Ringsprecher in Österreich.
Ja.
Also du bist noch im Wrestling-Business aktiv, nur als Ringsprecher? Nur als Ringsprecher. Also ausschließlich als Ringsprecher oder machst du noch andere Geschichten?
Also ich war in den letzten Jahren hinter den Kulissen bei 2 Promotions aktiv durchaus. Also eine Zeit lang habe ich für die EWP was gemacht in Hannover. Das hat mir auch durchaus Spaß gemacht und dann für die German Wrestling Federation in Berlin. Das habe ich aber beides jetzt schon, ich weiß gar nicht, 1,5 Jahre, ja, fast 2 Jahre. Als dann irgendwie klar war, dass ich mich so ein bisschen neu orientiere, musste ich da kürzer treten. Und ich mache jetzt wirklich nur so Fun-Jobs. Also Wien hatte ich halt total Lust drauf. Und ich dachte mir eigentlich, du als großer Catch-Fan, du müsstest auch mal nach Wien. Warst du schon mal im Wrestling-Museum in Wien?
Nein, ich sehe
Ah,
immer die Leute, wie sie auf Facebook posten, dass sie im Wrestling-Museum waren. Und ich habe ja gesagt, ich war weder als Ringsprecher aktiv, ich war auch, muss ich sehr ehrlich zugeben, generell noch nicht sehr oft in Österreich.
ja.
Aber ich denke, ich werde das in der nächsten Zeit unbedingt mal nachholen.
Wird dir total gefallen.
Hm.
Unglaublich toll, der Gernot, was er da aufgebaut hat mit seinem Museum. Also ich bin ja ganz großer Wrestling-Geschichtsfan auch.
Ja.
Sonst würde ich ja auch so einen Talk hier nicht machen wahrscheinlich. Aber auch natürlich wirklich so ganz weit in die Vergangenheit. Meine Oma, die war in der Nachkriegszeit beim Wrestling und da habe ich ein bisschen recherchiert über deren Lieblinge beim Catchen. Die hat damals gar nicht verstanden, dass ich
Beim
Wrestling
Catchen.
mache. Genau, also sie kannte nur Catchen, sie kannte das Wort Wrestling gar nicht. Aber die waren in den 50ern in Berlin auf einigen
Ja,
Veranstaltungen und das war schon auf jeden Fall ganz interessant.
in der
Aber
Hasenheide wahrscheinlich.
nein, das war woanders. Aber da
Okay.
kommen wir gleich, würde ich sagen, drauf. Wir haben jetzt nämlich schon weitere Gäste, die kommen, und zwar im Doppelpack direkt. Ich würde sie direkt mal nacheinander eintreten lassen und dann quatschen wir ein bisschen weiter. Als erstes Gast Nummer 1.
Ja,
Seid
dann versuche ich es
ihr?
mal. Also, wenn du jetzt von Doppelpack redest, überrascht mich das zwar etwas, muss ich zugeben, aber ist kein Problem. Ich denke, wir reden von dem Mann, der aus einem sehr interessanten Ort kommt. Zumindest wurde er dort immerher angekündigt. From Out of Your Dreams, der dreifache Rekord GSW Breakthrough Champion, the Master of the Zero Gravity Kick. Extreme, liebe Fans. Ja, und da
Bin
ist
ich
er
schon
doch.
da?
Extreme.
Hallo.
Wenn wir schon von Menschen sprechen, die nicht altern.
Das
Ja,
stimmt allerdings.
ich weiß es nicht. Vom Hals abwärts bin ich ungefähr 100 Jahre gealtert. Aber ansonsten, ich versuche mein Bestes. Ja, schön hier zu sein.
Herzlich
Sehr
willkommen. Schön, dich zu sehen.
Schön, dich zu sehen.
Man kennt es ja gar nicht mehr.
Also, Ingo hat gerade eben gesagt, im Doppelpack. Das heißt, wir dürfen
Im Doppelpack, genau. Es ist nämlich jemand ein klein bisschen früh dran, aber wir holen ihn direkt einmal rein. Du kannst ihn ja ankündigen, sobald du ihn siehst.
Okay. Ich denke, du redest von einem Mann, der beheimatet ist in Cleveland, Ohio, der zweifache Champion, the Master of the Night Hammer, M-Dog Macross. There he is. Welcome to the 20 years of GSW, the talk. Hey, can you hear us? He can, but we can't hear you. No.
Cleveland is joining.
Did I do it?
Yeah,
I think
you
so.
did it. Welcome, Matt.
What's
So
going
good
on,
to
guys?
see you. Been a long
Yeah, I guess-
time.
Too long.
I hope you know the other guys here in the talk. We have our old ring announcer, not so old, but here, Thomas Giesen. And maybe you know the other guy because I think you fought the other guy some years ago.
So I was hoping it was Extreme.
There he is.
You still knew my name. That's
Yeah.
very flattering.
He still knew your name. Yeah. You two had a match against each other in 2010, I guess, here in Berlin, in my hometown for many, many years. And it was an amazing match. Do you remember still the match, or somebody of you remembers it?
I definitely remember because I think it was my first time in Huxley's.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yeah.
the venue was awesome and so big and impressive. And I really liked that match a lot. Extreme was great. The crowd was great. Like everything about that trip was really awesome. So I definitely remember it because it was, it was one of my favorite like international matches. I think it was really cool.
Yeah.
Was it a match for the Breakthrough Championship title?
Yes, it
Oh.
was.
Okay.
The reason I remember it is because it was one of my last matches. And, getting older, it's harder to remember things that are further in the past. But that I do remember and always enjoyed very much working with Matt Cross. Wasn't the only time, obviously. We always had a lot of fun. If memory serves. And that's my impression, at least, of the time we had.
You did not
A lot of
even...
fun.
You did not only fight each other, you also were a tag team at least once in German Stampede Wrestling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I can't believe that was one of your last matches 10 years ago.
It was, yes. In fact, not the last one, I believe, but it was one of the last ones. Yeah, for my retirement, early retirement.
Yeah,
so Extreme, you have to tell us, Extreme, what are you doing these days?
These days, at the moment, I'm working as a teacher, an educator, if you will. Yes.
Cool.
It's a
What are your
lot.
subject as a teacher? What are your subjects?
I teach English and PE. Surprise, surprise. Yeah.
For primary school or secondary?
It's secondary school.
Nice.
What we call gymnasium here.
Gymnasium. Small town gymnasium.
Fairly small. So it's a lot less chairs over your head than it is in the ring. Although I'm pretty sure not all teachers can say that of themselves and of their jobs. But where I work, it's really very civilized. We have nice students.
Very nice. Yeah. So I have to tell you that I'm also a teacher now.
Oh, we got two teachers here.
We got two teachers now. And I'm a little bit at what we call, not Brennpunktschule, but one of the special schools in Berlin. But I also teach English. My subjects are English, math, and German, but for primary school, which is until 6th grade in Berlin. Yeah.
Okay. Which is good because it's a lot easier to knock over 6th graders with a chair than it is, 18-year-old kids, as I have.
That's true.
They come to tackle you.
So, Matt, now for you, what are you doing these days? I know the corona pandemic striked in the USA as hard as it did here in Germany. So, for an international traveler like Matt Cross, how was it that corona suddenly broke out?
Yeah, things just sort of stopped overnight. I was supposed to go to Costa Rica and then got a call and they were like, obviously can't happen. And that's kind of when it all started. And then for a good 18 months, it's been going on. Well, I'd say rather 11 months, I did next to nothing. I really leaned into it, though. It was kind of my first break in 22 years. Before wrestling, I did gymnastics for 11 years. There's no off season in that. And I'll never take a break because it's just not in me. So the forced break was almost nice. And then at some point, the first couple of weeks, you're panicking, like, how is this going to work? How am I going to survive? But once I kind of made ends meet, I was like, hey, for the first time in my life, I had like a weekend or like what you call a normal schedule. And I kind of enjoyed it. I understood like when it was Saturday and it was like the day off. And I'm like, hey, guys, it's Saturday. Because normally if you just say the word Saturday, I think, oh, no, pain, stress, travel, death. So it was the first time where I had like a weekends and like during the week I could kind of, so I kind of liked it maybe too much. Because then as we've trickled back, I'm like, oh man, remember this time last year where I was just like enjoying life? Because it's not completely back, but it's back enough to kind of have a full schedule at this point. So
Yeah.
this year, maybe we're 60% back.
Yeah.
But that said, I've still, I did a tour of Alaska. I'm going back to Alaska in December. I went to Costa Rica. I went to Mexico back-to-back months. So for only being, a little over half back, as I look back on this year, I'm like, whoa, it's still somehow been crazy.
Speaking of crazy, just a second. I have a little greeting from somebody.
Okay. No idea what that is.
For somebody here in the round. Before I forget it, it's like let's say a digital love letter.
Nope.
And I don't know if it's possible to see it. Is it possible? Is it possible?
Don't think so.
Okay, we can hear the sound at least. And I will put it afterwards over the video. Let's do it.
Hey, Extreme, sag mal, tretest du eigentlich noch an? Ich habe noch ein paar Tritte für dich übrig.
Konntest du es hören?
Ja. Das konnte ich hören.
Das konntest du hören.
Nice.
Ja.
You didn't forget about me.
Tretest du eigentlich noch an? Ich habe ihn heute zum Mittagessen gesehen.
Obwohl ich die Lehrerrolle jetzt angenommen habe, ich konnte es ihm nicht beibringen, wie man das Wort treten konjugiert. Aber was soll man machen? Das ist ja, es muss ja auch nicht sein.
Matt, could you recognize the voice, Matt?
No, the alarm threw me off. I'm just going to say the Ubermacher to throw something out.
Almost.
He was in the first talk.
Yeah, he was in the first talk. Now when the second talk.
Matt hit the decks as soon as he heard the siren. He was like, the cows.
The siren was in Berlin, and it was Crazy Sexy Mike, who's wrestling as a Crazy Mike Chair these days. So, and he had some problems with grammar in the ring at International Impact 1. And Extreme, who is a teacher, tried to teach him grammar, like the past of to kick, right? Tretes.
German, yes.
Yeah, in Germany.
Second person singular present tense.
Yeah. Yeah.
Now I have to teach you the grammar too.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I didn't remember the exact sentence that he said.
Extreme is from secondary school, so.
Yeah.
Yeah. High above. But he didn't learn the grammar, but he was able to kick Extreme a lot. So
yeah.
Yeah, those were the days.
Matt, where are you at the moment? Where are we reaching out to you? Where are you right now?
Cleveland. So this is home.
Okay.
I was in Virginia Beach this past weekend for a 3-day ska festival, and then I leave tomorrow for Las Vegas for a 3-day punk rock festival.
Pretty cool.
Whoa.
My buddy and I, when you're a kid and you think, oh man, my parents are holding me down, and when I get older, I'm going to just do whatever I want, and I'm going to dress however I want and go everywhere and stay out late, but then no one actually does it. Like, I think I'm the only one who's ever done it. I'm just like a giant, big kid. So I was like, oh, ska festival? Yeah, let's go. Punk rock festival? Yeah, let's go. So
cool.
right now I'm just kind of crisscrossing the world to like
very cool
and stuff.
I think last week I was in one of my favorite comic book stores in Berlin-Kreuzberg. You can see here in the back I have some comic books like Masters of the Universe and Buffy and Bone and whatever. And next to the shop is the t-shirt shop that Matt always likes to go to, the punk rock t-shirt shop. So I had to think about you. And yeah, that's
my favorite record store in the world.
Yeah. It is.
From what I saw on social media, Matt, you traveled a lot to Germany in years ago when you were with GSW, right?
Yeah, absolutely. This is the longest time because of the pandemic that I haven't been to Europe. And I don't know if it's because things are getting like extra crazy in the States or because I haven't traveled overseas, but like I extra miss it because it helps ground me. And I do have like a more worldly perspective than essentially everyone in this country. And I need that because pre-pandemic, I'd be overseas for at least a month a year,
Mhm.
and sometimes upwards of 3 months a year. So I really had this sort of international flavor to my life that I miss. Like you can't, well, yeah, I can't say you can't, but I don't want to be just in the US always. It's too much. I like it, but I also like getting that different perspective and different viewpoints. And I think it's important for everyone to kind of travel and so they're just not in a bubble.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is the longest since 2006 that I haven't been to Europe or the UK and I feel it, you know, I miss it. I'm like, man, let me get out of here for a minute and get a doner kebab.
May I say
Yeah.
that is something I noticed and always appreciated a lot about you, that you seemed very grounded whenever you came over. I'm not trying to say that it's, you know, that not the Americans don't have that per se, but it felt like you blended in the best. And not saying that you blended in with the Germans, because we're not only Germans. The scene was more or less a mixture of all kinds of Europeans and also non-Europeans, but it always felt like you were from around here, whatever here. I felt very at ease because of that.
And that's like meaningful to me. Like I appreciate you saying that. That's like something that's important to me. I've been wrestling in Scotland for ICW,
Mhm.
and I was the only American on the show. And it was before a big show, and the owner gets really fired up, and he gives this big speech about how like they've made it, and they didn't need anybody's help, and they didn't need any freaking Americans, and they didn't need. And he's just going off in this accent that's so thick I can barely understand it. And I'm sitting in the room like, oh, he's totally forgotten I'm here, because he's straight up just like talking crap. And I'm like, this is hilarious, because when he realizes that I'm here, he's gonna be like, oh, oops. But I loved it because I was like, I'm getting the real sense. Like nothing's being, no one's walking on ice to like appease me, or I'm just getting the real sense of what this would be like if I wasn't here. And then afterwards, he walked right by me, and he had that moment of realization where he's like, oh, I just talked a lot of crap. So he has this moment of where he recognizes, and then he instantly follows it with, oh, you're one of us. and he was like, yeah, and it seemed genuine, you know? So I was like, oh, I just felt accepted in the UK. I feel accepted in Europe. And it's something that I don't know, that is important to me, because we're all just people, you know? It's like, especially within wrestling, like, what's the brass tacks of this? We all like a really weird thing. Like wrestling is weird any way you cut it. And we all like it from every corner. So I've been to Moscow and people liked this weird thing. And I've been to Colombia and people liked this weird thing. And I've wrestled for Inuit communities in Northern Canada and we liked this crazy weird thing. So I feel like I alone am some sort of like ambassador of realizing that, because we all get caught up in like our local city scene or state scene or country scene. And it's huge. It's massive. Like we're all part of this literal worldwide community that likes this weird thing. and I've always had that sense of it where I can kind of dip into each and every one and just sit and watch and learn and listen and be in awe of that. Because it's like, wow, that's special that like this thing found us, or we found this thing, and then we've all found each other through that.
Yeah. And I mean, I have to say, I met a lot of people in wrestling, and there are a lot of crazy people. There are crazy people in the audience. There are crazy people backstage. I met definitely the craziest people of my life in wrestling. But it's always nice when you have open-minded people who also like to travel, who like to experience, who also see a little bit of the intellectual side of wrestling. That is there. I really believe that. But not everybody can see it. And Matt, of course, you know, you were always the favorite guest that I had at German Stampede Wrestling. It was so nice. I mean, we traveled so much together. We went to Poland together. We went to Belgium together. I think Netherlands, we went together.
Yeah.
South Germany, we went to several castles together.
Yeah.
I was always scared you would die on the castle walls or whatever. You did the handstand. And yeah, we had such nice conversations, not only about wrestling, but also about what we see in wrestling. And same with Extreme when he was in German Stampede Wrestling. I mean, yeah, we missed you for the last years, that's for sure. But I think you had a pretty round career also. And one thing I need to ask you, Extreme, is how do you handle it? Like, I mean, you're really in a different life now. You're a family guy. You're a teacher. You, yeah, have a different career. Do you even miss wrestling? How is that?
I do miss the physicality of it, but being a teacher is not actually that different because you're also a performer in a way.
Yeah.
You have to, you know, maybe tone it down a bit, but sometimes you get to have a lot of fun with that. But of course, the whole concept, I do miss it being, because there's so many facets to it actually that I hadn't explored, I think myself, which I regret. You say a rounded out career. I think there was a little to be desired actually when it comes to my character also, because there's a narrative quality to wrestling, and I think I never really explored that to the fullest because I kind of got stuck in what was the character, if there was even a character of Extreme. So that I do miss and also regret a bit. Things you always, you know, think you could have done better. I actually just a few days ago found an old DVD I watched where I fought Pac in WXW, and it was horrendous. It was like I can't even stand to watch this because I was so I came across so pale and non-charismatic. So what I miss most is the opportunities to make it better. But altogether, I'm very, very happy with what I'm doing at the moment, which is also to do with me being a very security-loving person. But yeah, I would enjoy wrestling again too.
What about a comeback?
Yes, I don't know about that.
Time to do it better, even better, if it's possible.
But what if I fail?
One more time against Matt.
I might turn the mask. I think that's a good idea. There's a fail safe in that.
You want a mask when you want to deliver more charisma. You want to put a mask on you. Matt, can you tell Flo anything about that? I mean, you had to wear a mask in Lucha Underground. Does it help with the charisma?
You know what? It might. There is something to be said about. I didn't want to, and I don't want to, because it's really difficult. I mean, heat escapes through your head, so all of a sudden you're 10 times hotter. You can't see anything. You can't hear anything. It makes everything way more difficult. But, and I didn't realize any of this heading into that, but there is something to be said for you are hiding to some degree, or it doesn't feel like you. When we would make our entrances at Lucha Underground down the giant stairway, if you go back and watch that stuff, I'm literally just channeling Stone Cold Steve Austin. And in my head, going down the steps, I was purposely trying to have this swagger, for lack of a better term, where I'm just like Stone Cold Steve Austin with his head thing. And now I can't imagine whatever bookings I have next weekend, I'm going to come out and walk to the ring like I'm Stone Cold Steve Austin, because that would just look and feel ridiculous. But all of a sudden, you put underwear on your face and it feels like, sure, why not? It's not really me. So it is like, if someone's like, well, I don't like it, you're like, it's not me. It's like, it differentiates you and a character. So it doesn't feel as much like, oh, it's me. And what if I look silly? And what if I fail? And what if I do something wrong? It's like, it's just, I'm playing a character and that's what the character does. So there is something to be said for that. Now, given I don't want to wear a mask again, but you can, again, I don't think hide is the right term, but there's elements of that with a mask.
I mean, I was a long time of my life in different theater groups, and I always had the feeling like as soon as you put on a special costume, and I mean, a mask is like the ultimate costume somehow, then you feel like a different person and you can explore parts of yourself that you maybe don't have access that much to somehow else.
Yeah, it's true. Definitely.
Yeah,
I think it's interesting too. I'm backtracking a little bit, but what Extreme just said about being a teacher, having elements of wrestling. And I think that ties into what you said earlier, where the outside world sees wrestling as like, oh, it's lame or it's fake or it's whatever they attach to it. Whereas the realities of it and these undercurrents, the tenets of wrestling are in everything. So you look at Trump here in America. What was he doing? He was catering to a wrestling audience,
Right.
having people chant, build a wall, lock her up, lock her up.
Really?
It was wrestling 101 that people bought into at the highest level. We're talking politics and presidential elections. And all that it was pro wrestling. I was just having this conversation last week with a friend who's a lawyer. And I'm like, are you not just, you have a client and then you tell their story as charismatically as you can to sway a jury. So if you go up there and you're like, here's the facts, you won't win. Your client could be completely guilty, but if you're charismatic enough and present a good enough story, which is 100% professional wrestling, and no one would look at a lawyer and be like, what a joke of a profession. We hold that in such a high regard. And all they're doing, in my opinion, is practicing professional wrestling in a different medium. And it's like, so I love what you just said about Josh Prohibition, who I started wrestling with, is now also a teacher. And he's echoed similar sentiments and said similar things, because he's like, you know, there was one day where the kids were going crazy and he's like, I had to cut a promo on them. And it's funny. And he's like, I'm not joking. He's like, I slammed the papers down because I knew it would be more theatrical. And some of the papers flew around and he was always good on the mic. And he's like, I cut a promo on all these kids. And he's like, and the rest of the year, they've been perfect. He's like, because I did wrestling. So I'm like, wow, it exists everywhere.
It exists, and I have to admit I do that too as a teacher. I try to do it very rarely, but I do that too.
Guys, it's election week, election day next Sunday in Germany. The big election, new chancellor. I know exactly what you guys are talking about. Turn on the television, you see all the guys there.
Absolutely, absolutely. And there's a reason why Dwayne Johnson, for example, is so famous in Hollywood, because, or like Dave Bautista, I mean, they know how to market it and they know how to cut a promo, which helps a lot, definitely. But Flo, sorry?
Yeah. I said people are attracted to theatrics in general. I think it's something that resonates with a lot of people. For better or worse, I guess, right? Sometimes if you're a politician in a serious situation, I don't know if that's the only thing people should actually go on, right? But yes, in fact, it will always help you. And I think what I also had the opportunity to do is the other way around, educate people about what wrestling can be and what it is in essence, because obviously you're met with a lot of bias. And, you know, when you become a teacher and other teachers and in the room know you were a professional wrestler, of course, they will try to, you know, school you, no pun intended, right? But you can tell them, I mean, it's basically nothing else than all the other narrative or also dramatic genres. It works the same way, it has the same build. It's just a different medium. It's not as many words, right? It is more a physical aspect to it. But of course, there's also words, right? If you mentioned promos.
Yeah.
So I think I like to enlighten people about that a bit. I think it's a good opportunity to do that.
Yeah.
So,
we have our next guest very soon. Just one question, Extreme, for you. Do you tell the kids at school that you were a wrestler?
I do. Nowadays, now 10 years into the job, not many people remember. But when I started, everyone knew because of the internet, right? And everything was still pretty fresh. I do tell them. And I don't believe in being someone I'm not.
Yeah.
And as a teacher, when I was a student teacher, I felt people train you to take on a persona, which is ironically something I should be used to. And it helps at times, but you have to be sincere at the same time, I believe. And I think it's never a good idea to lie to students or even withhold information from them, which they're interested in, because that's what you want. You want them to be interested, whether it be in your personality or in subject matter. But if you get them interested in your personality, that will obviously lead to them connecting with you better, and which leads to being easier to teach them. So
speaking of personality, we have a new guest here.
Oh, that was segue.
Welcome her. She's from Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, USA, and she's 20 years in the wrestling business. Welcome, April Hunter.
Hello, hello. How are you guys doing?
Very
Welcome
good.
to 20 years of GSW.
Yes, VS Gates. Say that right now, VS Gates, right?
Good.
Very, very good. Speaking of international open people, I have to say, when April Hunter came for the first time to Germany, it's hard to remember the exact timeline. But I remember that you said, hey, if I come to Germany, the only thing that I would ask for is to come 2 days earlier. And I didn't know you at the time. You were coming to Marburg, and I was like, April Hunter, who will that be? And then she told me that she's even watching German independent movies with subtitles, and I was really, really impressed.
Yeah, I love the foreign films, and the German films are really good. So you guys don't have the rating system that we have. So you're able to tell the story without holding back. So you're able to be more truthful and honest than we are. So
maybe not always, but in some perspectives, definitely. Yeah. When you have, for example, sexual topics, which is a bit different now with Netflix and everything in the USA, but especially in the past. So April, welcome here in the talk, 20 years GSW. We have here our ring announcer, Thomas Giesen. We have Extreme, who worked for more than 10 years for GSW, and Matt Cross. I think you and Matt were on the first international, like the first time you came over, it was the same International Impact, right? Should have been International Impact 4.
I think so. I've had a few bumps to the head since then.
I think so. I think we came from France or something like that, because it was like a really crazy, like we didn't sleep, like
that was a horrible, and so that story was interesting. We had a car, and the car barely fit all of us, and we all piled in like a clown car, but nobody accounted for our luggage.
Yeah, so European cars are always smaller. That's always the running joke.
And then we had to get a second car, and nobody could drive stick shift except for me. So so then myself and Kid Cash went into the second car. So we all piled in on no sleep whatsoever and headed down to Paris. I do remember that.
Yeah.
So
you posted the story very, very recently on Facebook, and I didn't know.
I left my bag on the sidewalk.
I didn't know Matt was in the car too, so that's new information for me. Kind of a long time ago, Matt and Extreme were actually together in the opening match. It was the first match that Matt had in Germany for us. It was not the first match that April had, because she was in Marburg before and had a women's tournament with 3 matches even on one night. How did it feel coming over, and then the promotion already asked you, okay, 3 matches?
You know what? I was really looking forward to it, because I knew, Lacey was very good. I had heard of, I knew Rachel, or knew of her. And I was very familiar with, here's the one with the spray. I'm visualizing her. Greece. She's Greek.
Blue Nikita.
Right. Thank you, Nikita. Yes.
Yeah. I met her today for lunch. So greetings from her. She couldn't be here, but she would have liked to be here.
Yeah, but for me, my memory is like, it's there. I can see it. Sometimes I can't always get it right out, but I visualize it. But I heard of all the girls. I wanted to work with all of them. You guys bring in really good quality talent, which is something that at that particular time was not always afforded in the United States, which is why I wanted to travel. So I was looking forward to it. At the time, I had gotten hurt, and I was at that point 30 pounds heavier than I am now because of getting hurt. So I was nervous about wrestling and being heavy and what I looked like, because, for us, a lot of us it's not just what we do, it's also what we look like. So I was really, how do I put this? It was heartwarming to me that the fans were so great, because at that particular time I was really down on myself for having gained the weight and needing to get back in the ring and work, but also knowing that I didn't like what I looked like. So when the fans were really awesome, I was like, oh, okay, I can do this.
They loved you, and it was our first almost full female show. So we had mostly female matches, and just the filler matches were the male guys, and that was interesting. It was actually the first show ever that my sister watched. I was already wrestling promoter for so many years. My sister came over from Düsseldorf to Marburg, and she was a very, very big April Hunter fan. She was always like, April Hunter. She was so great. And then you went to International Impact and faced Westner there. We had Westner on our first talk.
Yeah, you guys were ahead of your time with all of that. Like, very progressive with your wrestling. People weren't doing things like that at the time. When I started in wrestling, I started ringside as a, kind of a, ringside, a valet.
Yeah.
And then maybe you could be a manager, and then you had to kind of fight and claw to get to be that one women's match on the card. If there was already a women's match on the card and they were locked in, you weren't getting a spot. And a lot of times we called that the popcorn match.
Mm-hmm.
That was the, and then eventually there would be an occasional women's show, and through the progression of the years, we finally are seeing, we saw some women's pay-per-views, and now years and years later, we now see women headlining actual, top end, shows, but we didn't have that when I started. So you guys were kind of ahead of your time with all of that, having the women's matches and then the guys as the accoutrements. So
yeah,
well done.
Thanks a lot. And I mean, your work was also awesome at the time. I remember it was a lot of fun also to tape with you backstage. And it was just, I mean, we also learned from the talents that were coming over. It was not just, okay, we want to show off or we want to put international people against each other or whatever. We wanted to have the talents coming in, that our workers could learn, that we as promoters could also learn. Like, whoever was coming, there was always an influence coming in.
Yeah, and she was amazing. Just probably one of my favorites to work, actually.
Nice.
Very talented.
Glad to hear that. April, can you tell us a little bit? You're doing a talk show as well these days. You're doing, I saw the A show, correctly?
Yes.
Can you tell us a bit about it?
Well, let's see. I kind of got out of wrestling. I keep like one big toe in there and do some signings. But I got, you get beat up after a while and it starts to really hurt. So I went back to school a few years ago, back in 2015 or 16. And I went to an accelerated school so I could get through quickly. It was a 24/7. I went to Full Sail University. So I got my degree in writing for entertainment and journalism. And through that, I started, I got out just in time for COVID and quarantine. So everything sort of dried up. I was supposed to have moved to LA to start doing, pursuing writing for television, Netflix and HBO and everything.
Yeah.
But thank goodness I did not, because LA was one of the first places to shut down. They shut down hard. And I live in Florida. And I think we're one of the only places in the entire world that stayed open. But in the interim, one of my classmates from Killer Kowalski's, Aaron Stevens, we talk all the time. And then finally, I'm just like, why don't we just take this to a podcast? We're not doing anything really. We're not on, our faces aren't being seen. We're just kind of rotting away right now. Let's do something. And, we would sit there late at night and solve the world's problems. And I'm like, let's just, we felt like our world was divided into left and right. And we're in the middle. Modern reason was thrown to the side, and like I said, let's bring something helpful and positive and reasonable to the internet, and let's do that. And our tagline was "Smart is the new sexy." So that's what we started doing. And here we are. We started in January, and they say most podcasts don't last past 20 shows. And we just did 35, around 35.
Oh, nice.
So we're fortunate because we have so many friends, we can pull them in. So we just had in Trevor Murdoch and Mick Foley, and we pull in some eclectic guests too. So like dream analysis experts and conspiracy theorists, debunkers, and so we do that.
So everybody Google the A Show with April Hunter and Aaron Stevens and check it out. I think we have our next guest coming in. So
shall I try to call him in?
Or maybe when he's there, you can announce him. So we'll see. Oh no.
Abend.
That's actually not the guy who I expected, but April, if you can remember this jerk, that was somebody that you gave a treatment.
Du hast meinen Namen falsch
Jerk.
Ja. Hallo zusammen.
But
das ist ja mal gut hier.
Ich komme extra mit Weizen dabei.
Yeah.
Lecker.
Very good, but he was not the one that I wanted here. So
who let this guy in?
Yeah, he's out again. I'm very sorry, but now we will have.
Must go now.
Now this should be the real guest who is supposed to enter in our mix. And welcome. Welcome to the GSW anniversary talk. On the sofa, like Michael Kovac in the first talk.
On the sofa from Toronto, Ontario, Canada, and he's in wrestling business for more than 30 years. He's the master of the hospital job, Joe Legend, ladies and gentlemen.
Thanks for having me in, guys. Thanks for having me in.
Have you on the show.
Oh, my pleasure to be here.
So good to have you, Joe. Are you in Hanover or are you, where are you currently?
I'm in Hanover right now, yeah.
Coming back from Canada, you stayed some time in Canada.
Yeah, I had to go for my father's funeral.
Yeah, very sorry to hear that. You told me also online.
That. Thank you.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was a rough go, but a lot of paperwork and nonsense to get through and pass the quarantine to attend the funeral. But ultimately, as difficult as they were, the Canadian government did come through and I was able to go. So as much as I want to complain about them, I was able to attend the funeral, so I'm not going to bitch too much. I will bitch, but not too much.
Yeah. So I hope you know everybody in the talk. Thomas Giesen, the GSW ring announcer.
Yeah.
Then Extreme, who worked 10 years for German Stampede Wrestling before he retired in 2011. Then Matt Cross from Cleveland, Ohio, and April Hunter is also with us.
The lovely and talented April Hunter. How you doing,
Hey, I'm all right. How are you doing? Nice to see your face.
You know, getting by. It's been nice sharing certain video chats and stuff that we've been seeing on Facebook to one another. I'm with you. I'm like-minded, my lady.
I know. I got banned yesterday.
Oh, really? What long? How long did they ban you for?
They banned me for 24 hours because of the FDA trial that I put up, and then I disputed it, and then they apologized and reinstated me.
Oh, wow.
Good.
That doesn't happen very often, right? Like even apology?
No, it does not. It does not. And science is always changing, though.
Wow. So, Joe, one thing I really would like to know, I mean, we talked about open-minded international world travelers, and I think you are definitely one person as well. We also talked a little bit about the film business. I know that you're also very interested in the film business. Who had more countries that you wrestled in, Matt Cross or you? I mean, by the years in the business, it has to be Joe Legend, but I would like to know.
I'm 46 countries in.
Wow.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that's my new goal. So if I call myself the most well-traveled wrestler, will you just not say anything?
I'll just keep it.
Don't raid in my parade. That's amazing. I'm at 29.
How many bits?
29.
Oh, that's not bad. Shit.
Yeah. So I'm making a go for it, but holy crap, that's I don't know if I'm inspired or depressed because I'm like, okay, if it's like 2 or 3, I'm like, okay, I can do it. But I don't know if I got the years in me to make it to 46.
You never know. That's the weird thing about the wrestling business is that, like, if you play soccer, you're somewhat limited to a certain amount of countries. If you play basketball, same thing. Football, even less. Like American style football. But wrestling is absolutely everywhere. I never would have expected, like, if I were to go to a high school reunion, and I probably wouldn't because all my buddies from high school I still hang out with and talk to all the time, right? So I don't need a reunion. I talk to them. But if I were to go to a reunion, to be able to say that I'd been to, like we were in Moscow together, you and I.
Yeah.
I've been to, like, Nigeria. I've been to Saudi Arabia. I've been to Kuwait. I've been to Iraq. Like, I mean, all these crazy places I never would have expected to go. Sitting in high school, people barely expected me to go like 3 miles north of the school, let alone all these other places. And it's totally down to the wrestling business, just having this weird connection with its own unique fan base.
And you even went to the Sauerland in Germany.
Yeah.
Several times.
Journey, but yeah, I made it. Made it out and didn't die. I'm pretty happy with myself.
It's even weirder than Iraq. So
maybe.
Tommy, don't be too fresh.
But I always thought the traveling, being able to go to other countries and see how they really are, and the art, the fan art, were the two best things about this career choice.
Yeah. I remember walking around Romania with you. We were in, was it Bucharest?
Yeah.
Yeah, you and I were.
Yes.
Yeah, you and I went for, it was because it was like Christmas time, so we wanted to go see the lights and all that stuff. So we wandered around the town, and it was like out of almost like a Charles Dickens novel. Like, it was all cobblestone streets and all this. It was really cool. And then the next day at the show, like, fans were showing up with drawings of you and pictures of you from all these different places you'd been, and somehow they were able to get pictures and download them. There's music videos of me on YouTube where they've got clips of me from, like, Japan and from Russia and from Poland and from all these different places. Like, I don't have copies of these matches. I don't know how the fans get a hold of them.
Yeah.
But they're loyal as hell, and they're able to pull this stuff out of nowhere. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah. Definitely. But now I have to ask, I don't want to embarrass anybody because the two guys are, like, here, but in how many countries did you work, April?
I honestly don't know. Definitely not as many as Joe or Matt. I don't know. That's a good question. I stopped counting.
Okay.
So
I counted.
I'm probably high teens, I think.
Okay.
Yeah,
well,
not anything like
I've been all over Europe and I mean, I've been with you in England, Ireland. No. I was with you in England, but also Canada, France, Ireland, Romania, Bulgaria, Canada,
Germany.
You were down in TNA. We were in England together for Dixon. Yeah, and I think we crossed over to Scotland for Dixon as well on that trip. So yeah, you've been a good amount of places just with me, let alone how many others you've been clearly on your own career path.
Yeah, definitely. I did a lot with Mexico and Japan too, but I've had a few tours canceled too. Like, I was supposed to go to Italy and Nigeria and Spain, and, like, last minute those places will have canceled for whatever reason.
We're lucky to have Nigeria pulled. I'll tell you that much.
I heard. I think I was supposed to be with you on one of those tours.
Oh yeah. No, yeah. Nigeria is terrible, but Italy's great. If you can get to Italy, do it just for the ice cream. Oh my God.
So I also have to ask Extreme and Tommy, in how many countries did you work for the wrestling business?
My mind was already counted.
Yeah, I mean, I counted mine, and I can already say it's 3.
I think up to 4.
So I'm the
Germany, Netherlands, the US, and Canada, I think.
I might be able to top that even.
Yeah, of course.
Surprisingly, does Bavaria count as its own country, or is that?
Yes. Yes.
Okay.
So then it's 5 to me.
Then I also have 4.
In that case, yeah, I'm 47 now. Yeah.
There you go.
So how many Extreme?
Well, I'd have to guess, or I can count them. I mean, it's obviously the Netherlands and Germany and Switzerland and Austria and England, and that's probably it.
No, Netherlands. You also did the Netherlands.
Yeah, I think that was the first country.
Okay, okay.
But let's count it twice.
I thought you were built. I thought you were built
Netherlands
for Japan.
and Holland.
Maybe Belgium as well.
Oh yeah, Belgium. You're right. And France. Forgot about those.
So you see,
right?
I forgot about Switzerland, so I'm down to 5, and if you count Bavaria in 6, oh, it's getting better.
So yeah, Japan. I think Matt, Joe, and April, you 3 were all in Japan wrestling, right?
I thought Extreme would have been there for sure. He's just got a style that's like the crowd would love him.
I think the problem at the time was that there was not so much exposure over the internet when he was active. I told him a couple of years later, I mean, probably TNA would maybe have been interested. And there were a lot of promotions that would have been a good fit, but you just did not see the videotapes at the time.
Yeah,
it could be it.
Matters.
Yeah.
Oftentimes I've been accused for being not passionate enough.
you lazy guy, you just invested in being a teacher and you did not go to every country.
Yes, long-term investments.
Yeah
I apologize.
Well, on the plus side though, you're going to be walking just fine for the next bunch of years. I've had to have both my hips replaced, so your decision wasn't a bad one.
You're working smarter, not harder.
Exactly.
I hope so.
So, Joe, I have to come a little bit back to your career in German Stampede Wrestling. You're a former GSW World Heavyweight Champion. You had a lot of matches for GSW. You went with many schools to me to promote GSW, which I'm very thankful forever because we were very young and you taught me a lot about the wrestling business on the car rides that we had together. Do you remember anything that you liked in the history of GSW, like some match that you have in your mind or some story?
Well, a couple of good things. The night that you put the belt on me with Carino, I love working with Carino. He's a great guy, but the fact that we had Bret involved, and I was, I'm a Canadian guy, so I was a bit of a mark for Bret years ago. Yeah, there you go. You got the shirt and everything. I don't even know.
Big fan.
Shirt.
Yeah.
But yeah, having Bret involved in the whole angle at the end was a pretty cool thing. It was like when I did the TV show in England and I got to spend 2 months with Roddy Piper. Like he's one of the reasons I got in the job. So it was kind of on par with that. Like these guys who I really admired, I was able to hang out with. One thing that I didn't expect to enjoy, and I did, was you booked me against Ian Rotten. And I'd gotten into a big argument years ago with him in Detroit. Backstage, we got into a big freaking heated thing. So I thought, oh, this fucking guy, Jay, I was getting all mad and like I didn't want to work with this guy and he can't work, And then we went out there and he just wanted to wrestle and he did a fantastic job. He totally proved me wrong. I did not expect him to be able to do anything but swing a chair and a bat with barbed wire on everything. And we went out there and worked and I loved the match. I had such a great time. So it was a great kind of, kind of smacking my ego to be able to say, you know what, I don't have to always judge people right away. I can actually see people change. And I really enjoyed working with them.
I still remember the match very vividly. Was an amazing match, definitely. A lot of heat for Ian Rotten and for you as the new babyface champion. I think a very good fit as an opponent.
That was actually the last match I had before you put the belt on me. That was my kind of go-home match on the way in. So if I lost that, I wasn't going to get the match with Carino or something like that.
Yeah. You're right. Yeah. Good memory. Do you also still remember what you destroyed in the match?
My future? What?
No. Joe and Ian thought it was a good idea to take a table from the venue. I think we had some wrestling style tables hidden somewhere, but it was a street fight and they took like a table that was the most expensive table ever. I don't know. It was like 250 euro or whatever. And we thought like, no, not this table, please. Yeah.
Oh, did we?
Yeah, you destroyed it. It was pretty solid. It was a very, very solid table.
Well, we're both heavy guys, so we were going to break it, I guess. Oh, I didn't know. I don't. Being Ian, we'd have to do a table. being a street fight type match, we'd have to do a table. I didn't know that.
Yeah.
There was an off limits table. I thought, oh, yeah, there's a table there. I guess that's ours.
Yeah, we were
famous words in GSW, not the big ladder and not that table.
Yeah, sometimes there was furniture included that shouldn't been included. Once we broke the toilet door even in Marburg, and there was also a big receipt for Soulfly and me. So we were always sitting there and we were like, oh fuck. But the fans enjoyed the street fights, so we had like almost every time a street fight. The toilet door, there was a kick into the toilet door and there was a big hole in the door. But it was not as expensive as the table that Joe broke.
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, I guess at least that table didn't collapse before you went through it.
Oh, Jesus.
No.
Well, when we were in Detroit years ago, we had a building we used to work, the Motor City Sports Club. And it was me and Edge and Christian and Brian. We were doing that Thug Life thing. And every time we went there, the building seemed to be in worse shape. The toilets never flushed. And we were like, gee whiz, could you do something about this building? And then Rick Matrix and Dirty TX had this street fight match. And they went out into the parking lot. And there was a bunch of smashed up cars in the parking lot. So they go out and they fight outside. And one of them power bombs the other guy through the windscreen. And a bunch of people walking by freak out. And they're like, this is a real fight. Not at all, considering the fact there's a guy standing there in a cowboy outfit in Detroit. They think it's a real fight. And then the police are called. And what happened was the police turned up. And it turned out the building had been condemned for like 2 years. And Malcolm had just shown up with like this, he just pulled the warning tape off the front door, brought in a power generator and set up shop without paying rent.
Oh my God.
I'm used to wrestling a place where you just break stuff because, hey, the guy's probably not paying rent anyways. We're destroying the thing.
That's the wrestling business.
That's the wrestling business completely. That's
Indie-rific. Do you have a book? Because you need to write a book, Joe.
I'm 40 chapters into my first book.
Oh, wow.
Oh, thank God. Good. Thank God. I need a copy.
who else is writing a book about wrestling?
Oh,
at least me.
Wow.
I'm writing also on my first wrestling book. It will not be autobiography or anything. It will be a crime story in the wrestling business. And I hope to finish it next year. So it's fun writing it.
Cool.
But
I had a 3-book deal for my autobiography. And then the publisher had some, I can't remember what the issue was, but they were having all their stuff seized until the court case went through. So I thought if I don't pull this out, they could hold on to my stuff forever or sell it off to whomever. So I pulled it away. But the first book was going to be called Joey Legend and No, I Haven't Heard of You Either. The second book was Joey Legend. Well, that didn't go to plan. And the third one would be called Joey Legend. Will you just get to the effing point?
Those are all good.
Yeah. I hate serious titles. I'd rather have a ha-ha.
Yeah.
Speaking about media, I also think that like almost everybody from you is or was involved somehow in the film business. With Extreme, I'm not 100% sure, but as I remember, you were studying for cartoon drawings, right? For movie style.
Yes, I'm actually a traditional animator. Yeah,
wow.
I am. I work for TV productions a year. Yes.
Can you still do that at some point? Like, can you use it in school, or do you still use it as a hobby, or is that gone?
No, I do it at home. That's the one thing I guess I'm most passionate about in the world, and also would probably go out on a limb to say that's the thing I'm most talented in, actually. But there's no safety in that either, right? So I became a teacher, but that's actually what I love doing most, and I keep doing it. If I didn't, I'd die instantaneously.
I remember you doing that already 20 years ago.
Yeah, I did.
Yeah. I think even before GSW, before the teacher career came.
Yeah.
So I guess one day you have to do wrestling animation for us.
That'll be absolutely possible, yes.
I would love that.
Voliberg's rock and wrestling.
Definitely.
Right. New version of that.
So then the other ones, can you tell us a little bit about movies in your life and the film industry? Maybe we start with Matt.
Sure. So I did a movie called Powerbomb that's on Amazon Prime. I basically got an email out of the blue, which is one of the great parts about being in the wrestling business, because every other day you're going to get some insane email. And if 1/4 of the things we were promised came true, every one of us would be on a beach in Hawaii right now, surrounded by like 400 beautiful women.
Very true.
Exactly right. So I got an email about, do you want to be in this movie? And I didn't really think anything of it. The parts that stuck out to me were it was during the week, it was paid, and whatever. So I'm like, oh, great. And I thought they were approaching me about extra work. So I'm like, yeah, I can go stand in the background of something during the week in between my bookings. Sounds great. I emailed them back. I don't hear anything for months. When I do hear back, they're like, we've had a meeting with the financial team and the producers, and we're going to move ahead with the project. We're going to cast you as the lead, and here we go. And I'm just thinking to myself, like, I'm not an actor. I don't even have an interest in acting. Like, oh my God, am I morally obligated to tell them that? Like, because this isn't what I do. And then I started to think, well, I'll find out if I can do it or not on their dime. So if I'm horrible, I'll be like, yeah, I don't do this. And if I'm okay, it'll be a new experience. So I think Lucha Underground was on at the time. So in their minds, I'm hanging out with Robert Rodriguez and I'm in the film industry, and I don't even know the terminology. So, but I dove into it. It's its own beast, just like wrestling is. So I was a bit ignorant to it. For example, like when we cut promos, oftentimes you're just trying to get the gist of something across. There it's kind of like word perfect, remembering scripts. I didn't know that's a thing. So sure, they had sent it to me and I had read it, but I hadn't memorized it. So all of a sudden when we're there and they're like, all right, we're going to do scene, whatever, here we go. And I'm with the other people involved in the project were actors. And I'm like, I got the gist of it. And then when I realized you had to like know the script, which I didn't, the funny part with that is one of the co-stars in the film, I had a 10-year-old son. So I meet this kid, he's a 10-year-old. I have no concept of anything. So I don't know if a 10-year-old is like, are they like smoking and voting, or are they like in diapers? I don't understand. So this 10-year-old comes up to me and the first thing he says, I'm thinking 10-year-old's like real young. He's like, hey man, do you know your lines? And I was like,
Feet to the fire.
No. That's how I met. I'm like, little 10-year-old jerk. But that's how I met him, and he was helping me. So yeah, long story short, I got to do that, and they sold it with a distribution company and stuff like that. So there was a premiere night here in Cleveland, so it played in the theater, which I thought, oh, it's going to be a small art house theater. Like, they're just using the term theater loosely. I almost had a panic attack when I went in because it was like the giant full-scale theater, and I was like, oh my God, my face is going to be 10 feet big. I'm not ready for this. But it was, pretty incredible, because that'll never happen again. In the movie, I play Matt Cross. So like, this never going to happen again. But it's on Amazon Prime. You can, I don't know if there's a difference with international markets. So hopefully.
Yeah, sometimes there's a restriction.
There is.
Yeah.
But I'll take a look tonight.
Check it out.
Yeah.
And again, I don't claim to be any good, but no one complained publicly, so I was pretty happy, because I was like, oh, I'm gonna get chewed up about this. So it was fun. Brit Baker is in it. She did incredibly, which was awesome, because this is pre all her AEW stuff, and I remember thinking like, holy crap, she's so good at this. And now it's like we're seeing it in AEW, and I'm like, oh, okay. So yeah, that was definitely within her. There's Adam Cole makes a brief appearance, so there's some real Easter eggs for wrestling fans as well. I mean, the movie's based in wrestling, not about wrestling. It's almost like what Ingo was just saying. So it's like, it's a bit of a thriller, touches of horror, sort of set in the wrestling universe. But yeah, so that's my story.
Sweet.
So if anybody hasn't seen the Power Bomb and you're able to get it, watch it and watch Matt Cross, or you go to YouTube and you put in Courage and you see the chase that we did over the rooftops of Berlin. Pretty cool movie chase scene with Matt. That was also a lot of fun. But I have to ask April, as a screenplay writer, how does it make you feel when you hear that Matt was not learning his lines?
Oh, you don't want to know. Well, I was laughing at that, actually. Sometimes you can do the improvisation, but yeah, we spend a lot of time writing those lines, so you should fucking learn them.
I felt like, you know, the outside world would be like, oh, wrestling, it's easy. You run around and whatever. And then we all know different because it's our life's work. So
yeah,
I was doing that to a whole other medium. And then I became instantly aware of it. And I was like, oh my God, here I'm the guy like, I can figure it out. How hard can it be? It's acting, you talk a little bit, whatever, I got it. And I go into it without even knowing the words. And I'm like, oh God, oh God, oh God.
It happens, especially with wrestlers that transfer into acting. Like I came from acting into wrestling. So I started with doing films and commercials. I was out on the West Coast and then came out to the East Coast to go to Killer Kowalski's. So yes, I was always surprised. I'm like, you guys only have one take to do this, right? Oh shit. Where I'm used to like 7 different angles and we tape it 7 different times and there's a lot of pressure. So I remember writing my promos on my wrist tape when I started because I'm like, I have one take for this. There's no break. You have to go straight through. So yeah, so I had the opposite issue as you. I couldn't wing it. I needed to kind of memorize it first.
And
I was thinking to myself, these other people have paid for it. Their names are on the line. They've been working on this script for years. And knowing it was multiple takes, I'm like, if I go in there, do the best I can. If it's horrible, aren't they going to be like, oh, let's try it again? But I was really cognizant of, will they be like, we liked it, or do it again, but do it this way. And I would interpret that as like, oh, I'm completely blowing it. So I was really waiting for those moments of like, hey, let's do it again, but do it this way. And it didn't really happen. Like there was a lot of times where like, great, we got it. Let's move on. And I'm like, are we sure? Is this, because I was just assuming I'm going to be horrible. And when they're like, great. I mean, there's a bit of this fake it till you make it thing. And they're like, okay, you nailed it. Let's go on to the next thing. And I'm like, imposter syndrome. I'm like, did I? Because I had no idea. But in wrestling, we're all good at like sort of feigning charisma or faking our way through a lot of these things. So I was like, well, that is in all of our skill sets. So I'm like, it's time to put it to like the ultimate test to a degree.
Apparently you pulled it off well.
I got pulled. Yeah.
So April, is there any April Hunter movie that you would advise the people to watch?
I've done a bunch of little bullshit films that are painful to watch. Everything from horror to like a series called Ultimate Deathmatch. Lots of people from OVW were in that. Kevin Nash was in that. Not a great series, but it's out there. I did one that's excruciatingly bad, so bad that it's fun, that Colt Cabana reviewed, called Not Just Another Wrestling Comedy. That one's, I believe, on Netflix.
Oh.
And the coolest thing I ever did that nobody saw was one in Japan with a company with 01. That was multiple titles, but I think it's called House Collapse. And it was called something else in Japanese. It didn't translate well to the United States. But it was actually a really kick-ass movie where they brought us in. We spent a couple days learning the fight scenes and all the coordination there, and then filmed it. And it was like Nicholas Pettis, like a lot of the MMA guys were in there. There was a pop star, Korean pop star, who played opposite of me, who was not a fighter. They brought in a bunch of people from a bunch of different avenues, and they were all in this film. And the same thing that happened to Matt happened to me. It was put into a real theater. And I was like, oh my God, this is real. They spent a lot of money on costuming and production. It was pretty amazing. So those were pretty cool. So
very nice. I mean, I know how the premiere feeling is because I had my own little web series and I had like the first 2 episodes in a movie theater premiere here in Berlin, which was also pretty crowded. So it was also, wow, I didn't know. But I mean, in film, you also have a lot of people that are kind of involved with somebody who's working somehow here and there. So it adds up pretty quickly. Because the teams are huge, of course. But now, Joe, how is it for you? What were your experiences with films, with movies?
Oh, let's see. When I was still living in Toronto years ago, I was doing, bit parts and stuff like that. There was a TV show called La Femme Nikita. I played a soldier on that one. there was a movie called New Jersey Turnpikes with Kelsey Grammer, a guy who played Frasier. So I played a crazy basketball fan who tried to kill the team. Over here, I did a couple of things. I couldn't tell you the names of them, but in France, I was brought over to Paris to film a couple of things. I filmed a commercial for Ring of Honor in Paris. I've never worked for Ring of Honor. That's as close as I've gotten to working for Ring of Honor. I made an appearance on a variety show, kind of like a Saturday Night Live type thing in Puerto Rico. And I did the TV series Celebrity Wrestling with me, D'Lo Brown, and Roddy Piper in England back in 2005, which was fun. And the best part is I didn't have to learn lines. It was just me going out there being me, mouthing off. And I mean, worst case scenario is if I'm not loud and wild enough for the show, we got Roddy Piper there. So no matter what I do, it's never going to live up to, Roddy Piper's promo ability. So I didn't feel any pressure because I knew Roddy'd be right there, and D'Lo's such a great underappreciated talent. D'Lo is so good. He's so really, really good, especially a good promo. And I don't think he gets enough credit for that. Done a few bits and bobs here and there. Recently in February, I did a music video for a band called Jupiter Jones here in Germany.
I have to tell you, the guitarist of Jupiter Jones, and I saw the music video, he was sitting in university, always together next to me in the last row. We were like the laziest students in the back. So I went with him to university. Yeah.
Oh, cool. Well, they're real nice guys. So yeah, the video's called Happening. And I got to play basically an aging wrestler in this video, but apparently it was well received. Normally, I'm more of a Motorhead, Metallica kind of guy. So Jupiter Jones is more pop. Is not usually my thing, but I enjoyed it. I was surprised I liked the song as much as I did, and the band was cool and it treated me well. And I've got a bunch of other films upcoming. Like Matt was saying, if it happens type thing. But there's a movie where I'm a pirate, another one where I'm a Viking, another one where I'm a spy. I got a whole bunch of these things kind of in the hopper. I'm just waiting for him to pull the trigger.
Yeah, nice. So everybody should really check out the Jupiter Jones video with Joey Legend if you haven't seen it yet. Yeah. I just want to know, sorry?
Atman,
yeah. And I want to know for Extreme, did you do any film work in front of the camera or never?
Not film, no. If you don't count school projects, which we don't. No, I'm afraid not. Maybe it's for the better.
Tommy, did you ever do?
Never.
Why
should I be in a movie? A ring announcer in a movie. But I had the pleasure to actually announce like a movie that was shown in the cinema. WXW did like kind of a movie when they were touring in Japan. And I stood on in front of the big screen and had the pleasure to announce the movie. And that was cool. That was fun. Yeah.
Japanese?
In Japanese? Of course not.
Damn.
Could have done it in Dutch, in English, German, but not in Japanese.
Joe, did you ever wrestle in Brazil, I have to ask?
No, I had a couple of bookings that didn't pan. They're like the ones April was talking about where you got supposed to be booked somewhere.
Yeah.
Brazil, I talked to the promoters and then it didn't pan out. Egypt. I've been booked in India, I think 10 or 12 times. That's always fallen through.
Yeah.
But yeah, Brazil was one I always wanted to get to. And then just, the wheels fell off the thing before we could get going.
Yeah. Yeah, would be interesting, but there's not so much wrestling going on in Brazil. But back to Germany, back to German Stampede Wrestling. I mean, Joe, you had a lot of big matches for GSW. Can you tell us a little bit more if there's some stuff in the back of your mind, some special moments? I have one. If you don't have one, I give it to you.
Oh, no, there's a lot of good stuff. Like I say, the match where you guys put the belt. My first match in, actually, it was at an International Impact.
Yeah,
I feel guilty not remembering the guy's name.
Number 2, and the opponent was Jose Lopez from Berlin.
That's the one, Jose Lopez, right? But I remember being up because there was a top kind of bowl to the building we were in, so you could go up there and kind of watch what was going on. Because Mick Foley, I didn't know he spoke fluent German. He went out there with Steve the Chief and did have a good Tag, you know, like that. I was like, wow, way to go, Mick. But you had a video that you'd filmed earlier going through the back area, and it was kind of showing all the wrestlers. Somebody was looking for somebody. I can't remember what it was. But I remember I was on that video, and I was like, this camera's going to go right by me. Nobody's going to have a clue who the hell I am. This is going to be a good haha at my expense type thing. And the camera comes up to me, and I'm like, yeah, he's just down the hall or something like that. But when it came up to me, the whole place erupted. I was like, oh, that's all right. That's much better than I expected.
Yeah.
And then I went out there to be a heel, and the place cheered me like crazy. And I couldn't. I kept, being a cheating bastard, and I attacked him after I won. Like, I did everything to be a heel, and they just kept.
You gave him another hospital job, and the place popped.
Yeah, I was waiting to be, hey, asshole, like, you won, stop it. And instead, they were like, yeah, do it again. I'm like, it's not like Jose's a bad guy. He's a really nice guy. Like, why are you so mad at Jose? But yeah, for some reason, they just took to me as a real face.
Yeah. And then Steve Corino came in. You met him on the entranceway. There was a little bit of struggle. And this story lasted for at least 1 year and had the big showdown with Bret Hart.
Yeah, because I think I might have hit Corino with a hospital job behind the ref's back in that match. Right? I did something to brain him in the match, I believe. And it was a big false finish. He was able to kick out. I can't remember what it might have been the hospital.
Oh, yeah.
But I did something to involve myself to be a heel in the match.
Yeah.
To dickhead him. And, it got a little bit of heat, but I was waiting for you bastard. Instead, they were like, Steve can be a jerk sometimes. Be nice.
One story I have to ask you about is, do you remember the time, like, when you came, like, really, 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 really late for your match? Like, there was one time that you...
Where the double switch with Eric Schwartz?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was really crazy. Can you tell us the story?
From what I remember, the traffic, there was some kind of an accident on the highway. It held us back. And
but for hours, like it was not,
like we were supposed to be there.
Not the traffic jam.
Like 5, and we didn't get there till like 8:30 or something. It was like really late. And I run through the door, and you guys are like, get dressed. I think you even held back my match and gave me enough time to get changed. I don't know. I think you were kind enough to make me just run from the car into the ring.
Yeah.
I do remember running into a guy. The guy's like, hey, Joe, how you been? And he's like this bald guy with a beard. And I'm like, hi, nice to see you. And I didn't realize it was Brian Danielson. But we used to live in the same house in Memphis, but he didn't look like that. So I didn't really recognize it. I had to go out and do my match. And halfway through the match, I was like, that was Brian. So I had to make sure to go and track him down after the match. And then Eric was supposed to blast me with a chair, but during the match, the seat fell off the chair. So instead, he was hitting me with the frame of the chair, which looked like shit. But we didn't have another chair to work with. But I remember the chair fell apart before we could use it correctly, in the finish. But it was the double switch. You're trying to do the Austin Bret Hart double switch.
Yeah. And for me, it was really impressive because I think you were supposed to be like the last match before the break. And we switched it to the second half, maybe co-main event, or like as far as possible to the back. And
just to give us some breathing room,
yeah. And I needed something to kill time. And then Brian Danielson went out, and I said, okay, you need to have a promo for 15 minutes. Because Joe's not here, but he's almost here. I was on the phone with you, and I said, Brian, please go out 15 minutes. And he said, what am I going to say? And I said, you will come up with something. So
you're a professional, damn it. Say yes a lot.
But he turned big time heel, and he beat up a fan. So it was very entertaining 15 minutes, and the creativity that gets loose when you just have to improvise, right?
Yeah. There was no real chance to program anything. So it was just reading the room.
Yeah. And I mean, you, on the other hand, I mean, you already got dressed in the car, I remember. So I think you already had like part of your outfit on. You ran to the back, and I think Eric went out like 1 minute later or whatever. And I mean, you had an amazing match, and there was like no time for interaction before.
Yeah, well, the thing is, like with Eric, it's not like if I was working with Matt has all these incredible flying moves that I'd want to make sure, let's program some of these things in. So I catch you the correct way so you don't land on your head, but also that I'm in the right position so that I'm not taking a knee to the face when I should have my hands here instead of there. Like, I want to make sure that we had everything just so. Whereas Eric's not like that. He's not in any way a flyer. So I can go out there and just, I don't want to say walk and talk a match, but I can call it out there because Eric isn't going to do anything too spectacular or too complicated. It's very, very fundamental. I don't want to say basic, but he used very fundamental stuff. So it was easy to work a fundamental match with him. I didn't have to worry about trying to fit in some incredible flippy floppy high spot that he just, that put us both in danger without having a chance to put in the correct spot.
Yeah. How is it for high flyers? I mean, just put yourself in the mindset, okay, GSW, you are in the, like the highway is blocked, you're coming in 2 minutes before your match. How would it be for you, Matt, or for Extreme? First, the high flyers.
Nightmare.
I think we've all been there, like getting dressed in the car type things. I mean, it's definitely a part of wrestling. There's never a dull moment, right? So it's like every other week something insane has to happen, and that's just one of the insane things that'll happen. And you make do and do the best you can, and hope that you're professional enough or experienced enough so you can pull on certain experiences to make the most of it. I mean, I think all of us are and need to be at a point where we can do something on the fly. And then, like Joe said, I think the more time you have before the better the match can be. But fundamentally, you don't need to have it. It just, it helps. It helps you. It helps the fans, helps the crowd. But you need to be at a point where you don't necessarily have to have that thing. So yeah.
Yeah. How was it with you, April? You ever had a match where there was absolutely no preparation possible?
Oh, yes.
Oh, yeah.
There are quite a few times where you hit traffic or you have to do multiple matches and there's no time in between. I remember doing a WXW in the United States. It was Pops, AFA. He would run a tournament. And if you made it to the finals, which I did one year, there was no time at all to talk to anybody. And one year the finals was myself and Beth Phoenix. And we didn't talk anything over. And I forget who was before that, but I think I had 3 or 4 matches total that night, and it was exhausting and there wasn't much time to prepare anything. And because of that, I don't think the matches were as good as they could have been, because I had been learning and working in Japan and Mexico too. So my style was kind of a blend of everything. So I had some stuff off the top and some things that we needed to go over. And if people didn't know the positioning or how to take certain things, there was a real risk for it not going too well. So you kind of have to keep it more grounded and basic when there's not as much communication.
Yeah.
So.
That's true, but probably can also help to have a couple of matches like that, right? To get a maybe bigger routine and be more relaxed and improvise.
Well, I'll tell you what, and I think that the guys could probably agree with me on this one. When you work a lot of places and you're working with people who don't speak the same language at all, and then you come back to your own country, anything is easy after that.
Yeah.
I mean, anything's easy after that in the ring, because then at least you can speak. So
yeah.
Am I correct?
What was the hardest country, like communication wise, for you?
I wouldn't say it was the hardest because the people were well trained, but I would say Japan or Mexico were the 2 most difficult. Japan was very professional, but the language barrier was challenging. I was trying to pick up what I could. But even if you speak the language, you're still illiterate. You can't read it.
Yeah.
So Mexico was challenging for me in a different way. For the company I worked, I mean, they kind of leased us out to AAA also. And IWA in Puerto Rico, and they spoke some English, but the women's company that I worked for in Mexico did not care for the American women coming in. So they deliberately did not speak English and they were not nice to us. So when you did speak Spanish, you did not let them know that you spoke Spanish. So it was a constantly be on your guard political game there. So
doesn't sound like fun.
it was not fun. It was the first place I quit when I got out. I was like, I'm not going back there.
Yeah, I can understand. Okay, let's get to some happy memories to cheer that a little bit up. About GSW, I heard from April, your favorite match with Wesner, as far as I heard, the International Impact match. Joe already said the match against Steve Corino with Bret Hart being involved in the finish. How is it for Extreme and for Matt Cross? You have any favorite match from your GSW career? I mean, Matt was probably the guest that we had most in Germany of all our overseas guests.
Feel like I'm on the spot and I'm staring at him. So I want to say Extreme because, again, I remember that night in Huxley's. I remember the building was so big. I remember the title was on the line. I think our styles really meshed well together. The crowd was into it. So I think even in particular, you took some still photos that I still have from that. So
yeah,
I think it's weird how all of us have had so many matches that at some point they all blend together and you're like, yeah, I did wrestling for 4 or 5, 10, 20, 25 years, whatever it is. And that's almost just like this mesh of like, I was in a ring. So the memories that you do have become like photographs. So sometimes those literal photographs are what gets implanted. So there's a specific photograph that you took of like me doing the shooting star and I'm directly upside down and the venue looks cool and the lighting looks cool. So that's like my memory is that photograph more so than like the actual moves and this and that. So that sticks out to me. And again, I'm looking at Extreme, so it's like easy to. I have a quick question for him though. I want to know, since he's now removed from wrestling, you were so effortless in your movements. Can you still do a backflip?
Backflip, I can probably do, yes. Yeah, I still try to keep up all the skills I had picked up. So trying not to be the old, since I'm 41 now, right? So it is a critical age. I know there are a lot of you guys out there who are older, obviously, but yeah, since you run risk of, getting rusty, I do try to, hone my skills, if you will, but there are not a lot of rings around. So, but the backflip you can do everywhere. So,
like you do a backflip every day in front of your classes, I think.
I did once.
Oh, wow.
But I try not to do it too often. Well, in PE lessons, you can do it, right? Because it somehow fits the context. But sometimes in English lessons, I used to do it. But I try not to make it too much of a performance anymore. It tends to go south sometimes.
Yeah.
Yes. But I do agree with what Matt says, that I mean, Matt must have like 10 times as many, probably even more matches under his belt than I have. So it really mushes up and becomes one big memory sometimes. But what I do remember also about Huxley's is that I used to play back the match and watch it with different people, because I think it was on YouTube a while, and every time I met someone who said, "Oh, you used to be a wrestler," so I pulled up that match because obviously I like it. It was a good match. I always enjoyed working with Matt, and a lot of the memories I actually have about the match is more of the reaction of people to that match than the actual match itself, which I'm very fond of, because people in general reacted very positively to it, even non-wrestling fans. So I didn't know you do all those kind of things. It's much more dynamic than I would have expected, and all these kinds of things. Good reception on general. But yeah, but there were many other things. Sometimes not even matches, but things that happened in matches that I remember a lot. I was referring to tables collapsing, for example, in some of the matches before they were supposed to collapse. Things like that I will always remember, or finding out how low the apron of the GSW ring actually was. These kind of things. Yeah, when you try to hurricanrana someone off the apron and you realize that you will smash her face into the floor because the apron is just not high enough. That those things I do remember.
Yeah, I remember that too. Mm-hmm.
We don't always remember what is said or done, but we remember how it makes us all feel.
Yeah. Before we continue with our memories, we have our final guest for the night, and probably, yeah, you all know him. So let's bring him in and see who is completing this round here for 20 years of German Stampede Wrestling. And he's also coming from the USA to us.
I think that this guy is originally from Winnipeg, Manitoba, Canada, but now he's residing in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, USA, and he's in wrestling for over 25 years now. He's the master of the lariat. Ladies and gentlemen, Steve Corino.
Hey, hey, everybody. Joe.
How you doing, buddy?
What's up, guys?
Hi, good to see you, Steve. So nobody knew, I also have to say that for the audience, nobody knew who's going to be in this talk. I tried to split up a little bit the people that were our favorite people in 20 years of GSW and that we wanted to have. So yeah, this is a very international talk, but one more person original for Canada. I don't know if you still live in Philadelphia. I mean, you're a lot in Florida, right, Steve?
So I spend half the week in Florida when I'm at the Performance Center, and then weekends I go home to Emerald Isle, North Carolina, which is right on the Atlantic Ocean.
A lot of travel.
I was a little bit wrong with my introduction, but sorry for that.
It's okay. I spent many years in Philadelphia, though, so I couldn't
only what the promoter guy told me. So
right, we can blame him.
Yes. How are you doing, Steve?
I'm doing great. I'm doing great. How's everybody doing? Everybody's got smiles. I'm happy to see everyone.
Yeah.
Without a mask, without a mask, we're smiling.
Yeah.
We got the only way that we could celebrate 20 years of GSW Corona safe. So no event, but we have a little bit of talk and shared memories. We already shared a lot of memories, but I'm really happy that you join us. Joe already talked about your big match that you had at German Stampede Wrestling in Oldsburg, Germany. That's why I also remembered as the King of Oldsburg.
That's right. Yeah. Like, I always think that Oldsburg is like one of maybe 3 towns in the entire world that I actually was popular in. So like it holds a dear, dear place in my heart.
And it was amazing for me because I have to be honest, a lot of fans were demanding Steve Corino, but I wasn't too familiar with your matches before. I saw a little bit of short clips. And then you were coming over and I had no idea how much the people would pop for you and how crazy they would go. And then we had you in a little segment that went a little bit longer than we thought it would.
I remember it being so long and just waiting for it to end. And like when I got back, they weren't mad, but there was a lot of eyes on us like, hey, that went way too long. Yeah.
The sound guy missed the cue. It was changed last second and nobody told to the sound guy. I remember it was Dummkopf because I remember Mick Foley saying Dummkopf. So it's probably one of the German words that you remember. And it went like time after time after time, like 20 times. Steve the Chief and it was Ares from the Swiss Money Holding. They were like, Dummkopf, Dummkopf, Dummkopf. Nothing happened. Everybody in the arena already realized something and looked up to the sound guy, but the people still went bananas.
I think after like the 17th or 18th time that they said it, was the crowd really got on like, oh, that's the go home line. Like that's where they're going. Like everybody but the poor sound guy didn't realize like that was the line. And all these years later, like it's so much fun to remember.
Yeah. And would you have ever thought that your opponent on that night would be part of your family some years later?
Oh my goodness, right? Can you imagine that? I wish if I had a time machine, I would have went back and told him like, hey, you're going to meet this woman and you're going to be married for so long. But I mean, you're going to get a free trip to heaven for putting up with her. But I just want to warn you that this is your future. But yeah, I always hold that over her head that my sister, that I met her husband before she did.
You did. Definitely.
Yeah, I should have warned him.
So at the moment you're working as a trainer and back in GSW days, you did a lot of training camps for us. And I remember, I mean, I already told Joe, it has to be something about Canadians, but I got a lot of my wrestling knowledge from Joe when I had some car trips with him in the early days of GSW. But then I also learned a lot about the business when Steve Corino came over, and you changed it a little bit. You did some practical exercises, but you did also a lot of theory of wrestling. How does the wrestling mind have to work? I remember some of the young guys were like, I don't want to do this, because they didn't know how important it was, but some really appreciated it and picked it up. So you have some memories about the training camps?
I do, and like all the mental aspect of what we do is so important to me. Like even now with my class now at the Performance Center, I always talk about like, it's always emotion over motion. You know, this amazing pro wrestling thing that we do is all about emotion. It's all about the fans, you know? So it's like, you know, you need the mental aspect of the business first. Like I always think anybody can fall on their back, you know, that doesn't take that much talent, but like to actually visualize something and create a story that is going to affect people's, you know, emotions for 8, 10, 12 minutes. Maybe they talk about it the next day. Like that's an amazing power we have in our hand. Like I'm sure Joe can say the same thing. Cause like, you know, I've wrestled Joe, I wrestled him in France, and all I did for 20, 25 minutes is just listen to him construct a story in this town that I had never even heard of before. It's my first time in France. And like, I'm just watching Joe at work, and like, it was just so much fun. And I think that, you know, that was one thing even back when I did seminars, was I was trying to talk to people about the mental aspect of our business and our industry. It is so important.
Yeah. And one of the very, very interesting stories that I had to capture on social media in the last time was extremely interesting for you, because there was a dad fighting his own son. And 10 years ago, those two were flying over to GSW in Germany, here to Berlin. We did some sightseeing in the city. I still have some amazing pictures. I had to post one on Facebook. And then I saw how much grown up Kobe is now, and that you actually went to the ring together. How was that?
Oh, it was like, you know, everybody can say like dream comes true and stuff, but it really was. You know, he's 25 now. It's crazy. When we came to Berlin, you know, he was 14 or 15, and like, you know, we got to see so many cool things with Bill Apter but like all these years later, like to actually wrestle him in 2021, like it's wild. When I went to the office to ask for permission, like I literally thought there was a 1% chance. Like this is a definite no, but like Colby asked me, and I said, you know what, I'll ask, you know, they're going to say no, blah, blah. And when they're like, yeah, this is a great idea. I'm like, what? Like, it was like a life change for me. He had asked me on my birthday, my 48th birthday, like, hey, do you want to do this? And like, you know, I wasn't in the shape. Like, I was like, man, I don't know how much I can last. I haven't wrestled in 5 years. And like, it was a wake up call of like, I am 48 and like, I want to live a long time. So like, I literally changed everything, my diet, my training. Like I got help from here or there. I you know, just countless nights in the Performance Center when no one was there. And like, you know, it was like a Rocky movie where there's one light over the ring, and here I am rolling and doing cardio drills that I was teaching 3 hours before to get myself in shape and to do those promos and vignettes. And you know, I hadn't done that stuff in so long. So to actually be in the storyteller seat was so cool. And then, you know, when I had asked him early on, I said, you know, how long do you want to go? Like 8 to 10 minutes? And he goes, no, 30. I said, whoa. I go, does that include like entrances and replays and exits? And, you know, is there a commercial break in there? Yeah, I'm all about corporate pro wrestling right now. And he's like, nope, bell to bell. I'm like, you got to be kidding me. So I trained so hard to like just hope that I could last 18 or 20. And, you know, we went the whole way, but like, it just showed like he took the role of leading and, you know, told an amazing story that, yeah, I'm so proud that we got that chance to do with, you know, his brother was in the crowd, his son was in the crowd, like my parents were there. Like,
so he already has a son now.
Yeah, 2 years old.
Oh,
Yeah,
so
I'm a
you're
grandfather.
already grandfather.
Yeah,
Wow,
I'm a
congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, he has a 2-year-old little boy that he's so cool. But yeah, it's it was a wild ride. I loved it.
Wow. I still remember how it was in Berlin, because I mean Kobe was pretty young and he got thrown by Steve Douglas on his neck. And my brother was in the crowd and he's not very used to wrestling. So he was like coming after the show and was like, this little kid, what's up with him? And where is he? And he's doing well. Like he was really shocked about it. It was a little bit on the edge when we discussed it. I was like, oh, really want to do it. But it got a lot of emotions out of the people.
Oh, it sure did. Yeah. And, now look at Colby, he's 25, just an amazing pro wrestler. He's got a huge future ahead of him, so I'm excited for him.
Yeah. We have some other dads here in the round. So I quickly have to ask Extreme, if your kids would tell you, I want to become a professional wrestler, what would you say?
Oh, it will be very surprising. Maybe my daughter would probably come up with the idea before my son would. But definitely, I don't know. I trust them with these things because they're if they're one thing, they're responsible. So I probably would yes, I would think it's a good idea actually to do that. But I'm not sure if my wife would. But of course, you always you worry for them. But it's something the best thing to have with a kid is passions you share. So. There'd be another one right there. So that definitely would be something I'd appreciate.
I also have to ask Joe Legend, of course, because I know your 2 boys a little bit. At least I know how they look. And how is it with them and the wrestling business? Are they interested?
They find it a little bit interesting. My co-author sent the Scooby-Doo WWF or WWE video over to us like as a Christmas gift or birthday gift to him. So they really didn't know much about wrestling other than what they saw on that. So they know who John Cena is from the cartoon and Brodus Clay and Sin Cara and crap like that. And they know Rhino from when he comes over here and stuff like that. They've watched my stuff on YouTube. They watched a couple of my matches from Japan and stuff like that, which is, it's always nice to see. They're interested, but they're interested in me wrestling more than them wrestling. Mm-hmm. If there was one thing that was going to get him into it, about 4 days before I turned 50, I was doing a show here in the Hearts here in Germany. And there's, I think it was 850 people, something like that. And I did the main event and brought them. It was the first time they could see it because in Niedersachsen, you have to be over 15 to go to a wrestling show, right?
Yeah.
So they're currently 13, so they were like 11 then, right? So they couldn't go to a wrestling show. But then the guy in the Heart says, yeah, they can do it here. They can't do it in Niedersachsen. They can do it up here. So I brought them to the show. And they were backstage and got to hang out with all the wrestlers. And all the guys were really, really cool with them, which was wonderful. But then after I won the match, I called them into the ring. And so they got in the ring and, like the crowd was, little legends, clap, 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 which is really cool. And we did my, Zigga Zagga and all that with the audience. And, the kids, like when they go back to school, like their friends can say, yeah, I've been to Disney World. My boys, yeah, us too. We were in the ring after the main event of a wrestling show where people were cheering for us. Were you? Like they've got that. Nobody else does. But I think if they were to be that interested in wrestling, that would have sparked it. And I haven't seen them overly sparked into it more than like they play handball and they're really into that. So right now I think they're going to pursue handball, but depending on how things go down the road and stuff, I mean, maybe they just see me dragging myself around the house and, 2 new hips and everything else. Maybe they're going, yeah, I don't want to wind up like Dad the robot. So maybe they have better common sense than I do.
That's probably a good lecture. Yeah. So now a little bit back to the memories of GSW. Like when you, April?
I'm sorry. I have an appointment at 3:30 my time. Okay. So I have to get out. So I apologize for cutting it short.
Maybe you just can, before you leave, just for 1 minute, is there one GSW moment that you can share with us that you had in Gießen or in Marburg?
Oh my gosh. Besides leaving my suitcase on the side of the road and driving off to Paris.
It doesn't have to be that dramatic. Just when you think about the time, is there something that pops up in your head?
When the fans were chanting April Hanta, you were like the guys mentioned earlier, and I completely relate to that. You don't always remember what you're doing, but you remember how it made you feel. And I remember standing there hearing that, and I, obviously feeling very, very loved. So
very nice. That's good final words. Say hello to your loved cat that we could also see for a moment.
Yes. Yeah, he decided to make himself known.
Yeah,
so.
Little run-in has to be on the program.
Absolutely, he does run-ins all the time.
Thanks for being with us, April. And
thank you. Dankeschön.
Have an amazing
nice
day.
to see you too. Thanks, you guys. I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on, and thanks to everybody watching. Have a good night. Guten Abend.
Guten Abend. Dankeschön. Okay. Then speaking about moments, Steve, when you think about your times in Germany, when you think about GSW, what's popping up in your head?
Oh, man. I think it's the night that I beat Absolute Andy. That to me was a cool moment in my career and everything like that. And he was so good, and Stevie Douglas was too. But I just had a cool chemistry with Absolute Andy that man, it was just so much fun being in the ring, and he knew when the crowd was going to come up, he knew when the crowd was going to come down. Just an absolute pleasure to be in the ring with. And the moment that he had tapped out was there was a roar in the crowd, and man, I have goosebumps thinking about it right now. But yeah, that was just, and there was so many cool moments in GSW. Just the out of the ring stuff, going to Berlin, or just walking around certain towns, and just getting just engulfed in the German culture. It was just, these are amazing moments in my life. And the first night in, meeting my future brother-in-law, and to this day, when I see Marco, I think of GSW. So yeah, just amazing memories.
Tell him greetings from us. I haven't seen him for a long time, and I hope he will come on another talk with us, because the fans would love to see him.
Oh, absolutely.
Maybe even with your sister together, who also worked a couple of shows for German Stampede Wrestling. And I have to talk about your first match against Absolute Andy. I mean, I was always thrilled how the reactions were, and it seemed to never get old when Steve Corino was coming to Germany. They even made T-shirts for you.
Yes. Yeah.
They had the Corino, they had the Absolute Hooligans, the Absolute Andy Hooligans, and then there were coming green shirts of the Corino Police. Yeah. Do you remember the first match in Mannheim? It was
Mannheim. Yeah. Wow. I remember, and it was years ago that group of fans brought me a photo album of all the times that I was in GSW and stuff. And I still have a Corino Police shirt that I wear every once in a while. So yeah, that was super cool.
And do you remember how many run-ins were in that match?
Probably way too many for everybody's taste, but I love it. Yeah, there had to be,
it had.
I like a good run-in match.
Yeah, it was I think 15 run-ins in the match, and we orchestrated it like a classroom. I mean, you didn't hear that, but we have a couple of teachers now here. Ekstreem is a teacher. I'm also a teacher now for primary school. And it was really like that. Steve Corino in the front, everybody sitting there, and Steve telling, okay, so this is how it's going to go. And then he's like, okay, who's on next? And the people had to, yeah, I'm, and nah, and it was really how you structured it. I mean, we came to you with those crazy ideas and said okay, we really want to mash up everything, every storyline possible. because it was a huge spotlight. I remember it was International Impact 4, I guess, and there was this crazy hurricane over the United States, and many workers didn't make the show. So you were supposed to be in a rounds match against Eki Eckstein that was booked with,
right.
yeah, would have been an amazing match with Didier Gap as the referee. Colt Cabana went into that match in the end. So you did not come. Also, a couple of other people were not able to come. But the airline gave us all the flights, like we could exchange for any other date. So the money was there, and we just thought, okay, let's have a treat for the fans and just like stretch it over the year for the little shows where you don't expect an international guest. So the atmosphere was crazy there, and yeah, the run-ins were also pretty crazy.
Oh, it was fun. Lots of fun.
Yeah. Matt, how is it for you? I mean, you had, we had Steve Corino there a lot. Joe Legend was there a lot. Extreme was a regular at GSW for many years, but you also came in crazy many times. So when you think about GSW, what's the first thing that pops into your head?
This is going to sound like I'm making it up, and it's kind of funny, but I was definitely at one or more of those main events that we were just talking about. So I remember seeing like Absolute Andy and Steve work, and just like the passion of the fans, and because it was unbelievable. And it's funny that you mentioned, because in my head I was like, there were these like football hooligan-esque groups that supported each guy, and I love it because you just said it, because in my head I'm like, they had names, and I was telling myself I must be making that up. They didn't have names, but they did, because I remember fans either emailing me or coming up to me in person and asking me who I supported, which I thought was hilarious, because they're like, are you part of the Reno police, or are you? And I'm like, holy crap, this is unbelievable. I'm like, guys, like, but that's like we talked about earlier, the power of wrestling, where it almost bleeds over into, because to us doing it every day, living it, eating it, breathing it for years, for decades, it's like, it's the match is what I'm thinking in the back of my head. I'm never going to say that, but I'm like, wow, the way that they can bite into these things. And the atmosphere for those matches were insane. So I remember a lot of stuff like that, because I think American crowds can be, no fault of their own, a bit jaded, because they have access to so many good wrestlers, so many good wrestling programs. It's just, we're punched in the face with some of the best constantly. Whereas when you travel overseas, there might not be 4 shows that weekend and every weekend after with the best guys. So there's always more appreciation. It might be, if you go to Marburg, there's not a show every single weekend there. So they bring a different energy and appreciation, and you feel it. You really feel it. And I think it comes across in some of those, like those matches, those main events were such a classic case in point of that. And it's impressive because they were so involved. So that's, and for me, it really planted a seed to a degree, because I was like, wait a minute, again, the wrestling world is really large. Every city, whatever city you live in, there's going to be some weird politics and a bubble, and some people are going to be involved in it. I've wrestled in Hungary, and when I first started going there was one company in Budapest, and there were all these friends, and they were introducing the concept of wrestling to their country, because they don't get WWE programming. So they are, it's not people that remember Hulk Hogan or whatever that are involved. It's completely new people, which is fascinating. And just lost my train of thought thinking about this. But, you know, by the second or third time I had come back, they were like, everything's different now. Oh, no. And I'm like, let me guess. There was 2 owners. One of them broke away. They've started their own company. And they're like, you've kept up with us? You know what happened? And I was like, no, but that's the story of wrestling. That's how it works in every town and every city and every country. Like the 2 or 3 guys that run it have a falling out. The other guy starts the other thing. Now you're at war, blah, blah, blah. It's the story of wrestling. So it's universal in that aspect too. But when you go to the places where there's just more of an appreciation, it's always, and overseas you get that. So again, for me, it planted that seed of wow, we think the wrestling is this one thing, but it's, again, a worldwide community. And because I felt accepted in GSW and in Germany, I was like, well, let me extend this. And I'm sure Joe can speak to that, and Steve obviously as well. And it's like, to be able to see the world and do what we like and get appreciated likely more than we would stateside is always something that is meant a lot to me.
Yeah. Very nicely said. Very nice words of you. Thank you for that. Extreme, I have to ask you, what is your GSW thing that pops into your head thinking about the years that you had with GSW, which were like 9 years about?
I have to keep it short, just as a heads up. My battery is down to, I don't know, 5%. So if I'm gone, that's because of that.
Okay, we're aware.
But briefly, I think I can refer a bit to what Matt says. There's this thing that there's an atmosphere, and also I'm not trying to sugarcoat it, but there's this sort of family feeling. Since, as you mentioned, I always was a regular, and there were people you met every time, and there were people you would meet every other time. And as with every family, there's of course the one uncle you don't like, right? But in general, it's just a very nice feeling to return to a place that is not really a home, and it is exciting and new in a way, because it is foreign, but there are people there that you know that share the same passions and interests, and at the same time, it's such a crazy mix of different crazy people from all walks of life. That is what I really enjoy and remember a lot. I think beyond individual matches, there are great individual matches as well, which I remember and like, and working with certain people. But the whole miasma of the thing, the atmosphere is just something I think I appreciate and remember most.
Nice. I think before your battery dies, since you were the first guest on the talk, I would say, and I know you're a family man, so probably your kids are waiting for you if they're still awake. And Extreme, I would say then we say goodbye to you now. And thanks a lot. It was very nice to see you again. I think you're the one that I haven't seen for the longest time of everybody around here. So it was really good
possible.
to see you.
It was a pleasure. Thank you, all of you. Yeah, be nice to see you. Let's do this again, right?
Yeah, definitely.
10 years, maybe before 10 years.
Yeah,
every year in September again.
Thanks a lot for being here. Thanks a lot.
Thank you. So bye everyone. It's been nice. Everybody. See you around.
See you. And okay, for Steve, I have a question now that I really want to have in, because I mean, you mentioned that you thought there's probably no chance that I can have the match against Kobe. So, I mean, now you're trained, now you're back in shape, now you're ready to fight. You went out there for half an hour. How is it now? That was the final Steve Corino match, or like, how do you feel?
Oh man, who knows? Like I could tell you it's the last one until the next one. That being said, I'm gonna continue the shape that I'm in right now. So like, just in case, you never know. I keep telling Colby, I'm like, you got to come down here. Like, you'd have fun, but he likes doing what he's doing. So, who knows? One day, it could be an NXT match, that me and him could do as a team or something like that. Even though he probably wouldn't be Corino here, but I just. You never know if the Royal Rumble's around. They're always looking at old guys, right? So like I'm right in the backyard, and I never get picked. So like maybe this is my time. I don't know. I'll politic for that right around December. But I'm just I'm just having fun and just enjoying feeling good.
It would be so amazing to see you in the Royal Rumble match and to see Claudio, alias Cesaro, there. There would also be like a little bit GSW interchange, because he was leaving Germany right before you came over for the first time. Like,
because I had met him in Philadelphia just right after my first time at GSW.
Yeah. I think you worked one show for us together, like the big show in Marburg, where we brought everybody in as a surprise. Yeah, I think there you were like Chris Hero and him worked as a tag team, and you had a singles match there. Yeah. So yeah, we will see how it's going to be. Joe, can you tell us a little bit? You want to say any next bookings of yours, or if you want to get the word out where we can see Joey Legend now?
Oh, really? Let's see. This weekend I'll be teaching wrestling classes for PTW in Poland. And I also teach wrestling classes for EWP here in Hanover. And then 2 weeks from now, I'll be wrestling on I think they told me it's a pay-per-view, but maybe internet pay-per-view for that PTW in Poland. They're trying to break open. They're going to have a bunch of guys there. I think, let's see, Nick Aldis is going to be there, and Santino Marella. I can't remember who else. I know they were having issues with travel because of the whole travel ban nonsense.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're bringing in a bunch of people, and I'm going to be on that one. Yeah, like right now it's hard to say because like I used to go to France every month to teach classes, but you know, everything's kind of closed up. Spain, once again, I usually go, but it closes up. I'm talking with guys in England about returning there once things open up steadily. So it's all about waiting for the stupid lockdowns to finish up.
Yeah.
Right now, the next major thing I'm doing is that pay-per-view in Poland in 2 weeks.
Yeah. Poland is very close to Berlin, so I would also love to go there one day and check out one of the shows. I heard Michael Kovac is there as well, right?
Not on this one. He might be for the other company.
Ah, okay.
This is PTA. It's a newer one. These guys also run an MMA company.
Yeah.
And they draw thousands. That MMA company does really well. So I think they're trying to kind of carry that audience over. Yeah. I've done a couple of shows for them, just small shows in their training center, but they sell out every time.
Yeah.
And they're a good team of people. The girls are unbelievable. The girls are so talented. And just like the one's a CrossFit chick, and like, you know, I'm trying to do stretching drills to warm people up. I'm like, okay, so just, you know, get your feet wide and try to put your head to the floor, and then you just drop down in a center splits, and then one will lift one leg up onto the stairs. So she's actually like in a U shape with her stretch. Like, okay, I clearly don't need to see you stretch. You know, you're good. Stretching isn't going to be a problem for you. So I got students all over the shop who are really doing well for themselves.
Yeah. So everybody who hasn't checked it out needs to see some wrestling in Poland. But speaking about stretching, where will you stretch next, Matt Cross? Where can people see you?
This weekend, I'm going to Punk Rock Bowling in Las Vegas. So if you catch me there seeing 3 days of my favorite bands, do not talk to me about wrestling. This is my weekend off. You can talk about any bands or any genres of music. But if you say the word wrestling to me, I'm going to hit you. Then I'm working with MLW, Major League Wrestling. I believe the next show is October 2nd at the old ECW Arena, which is near and dear to my heart. And I guess with Steve here, I should either thank him or yell at him, because I went to Heatwave 98 that planted the seed of professional wrestling in me. And here I am all these years later. I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. So I either owe you my life in a good way, or I hate you, to be determined. I saw Joel Gertner a couple weeks ago. I told him the same thing, because I'm like, all you ECW guys solely got me into this, and I got the bug. I was hooked. It connected with me on such a deep level. So I'm always grateful for anyone that was affiliated with ECW in any way. So we'll be at the old ECW Arena October 2nd for MLW. I believe it's called the Opera Cup, and a lot of heavy hitters of this generation. So we got Davey Richards, myself, Kelvin Tankman, TJP. It's a crazy tournament coming up. So looking forward to that. And then I got booked to return to Alaska in December of all times, where I think there's an hour or two of sunlight. And it'll obviously be freezing. I'm used to that in Cleveland, but I did a tour in April of Alaska was my first time, and now I'm heading back, which, you know, I don't take anything for granted at this point. I didn't know if I would ever go back. So to be going twice in a year is pretty amazing, but it speaks to the opportunities that are available to us in this business. So I'm really, really looking forward to that.
Nice. Sounds like a very interesting time that you have ahead of you. So last but not least in the round, Tommy, where can we hear you as a ring announcer next?
Of course, I am still the ring announcer of WXW. After all those years, I'm still and with WXW, and we're having a show in like 2 days. It's Wednesday today, so on Friday there's going to be a very, very small show.
We will air it only on Sunday. I'm sorry.
Okay, so too late, but the people may have been at the show when they see it. But we have a show coming up on this Friday. It's a small academy show, what they call, very familiar crowd, like 60 people in there. Always funny to be there. And then we got a bigger show, of course, in Oberhausen, Germany, one of the wrestling capitals in Germany. It's like an old school tournament. They tried to set up a tournament for about 3 days, but the arena wasn't available, though they put everything down to like 1 day. It's going to be called like a Blitz Turnier. From what I hear, it's a very classic style, catch style, old school thing. I think it's going to be fun. That's going to be on Saturday. And then WXW is going to tour for a couple of days in the east of Germany, which I'm not going to. There's another guy there. So I will have future bookings with WXW, but I still don't know yet. But I'm going to be back as always, mostly in Oberhausen, Hamburg, and stuff like that in western part of Germany. Yeah, just pretty much things to do.
A lot of things I had to hear. Thomas Giesen, one of the, maybe the most famous wrestling voice in Germany, and definitely one of my favorites. Always when Tommy is coming in, then it's wrestling.
Thank you.
Funny thing on the side, I think the only one in this round who hasn't been at a classic catch wrestling event in Germany is Steve Corino. Or have you been? No. Sad, but you never know what's going to happen. So everybody, it was so nice to have you here. It's late in the evening, was many guests today, but really some of my favorite faces that I worked with in GSW, because it was always nice to talk with you, to exchange thoughts, like each and every one of you. That also goes out to Extreme and of course also to April Hunter. Thank you so much for the memories. I could talk forever, but I know you're all busy people. So let's say goodbye for the night, and thanks a lot for being here.
Thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks for the memories from GSW, pal. It was your baby. We appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. But it wouldn't have been my baby without so many people being involved and really putting the passion in.
Thank you.
Thanks a lot. So goodbye, everybody. The next talk will come up. We're going to announce it on Facebook. So keep your eyes open, and thanks for being with us.